Good afternoon. Do I understand correctly? I don't use the microphone. Good afternoon. We are starting our panel discussion, which is described, the subject of which is fashion. Now, we shall listen to specialists who have experience in working in the fashion sector, not only knowing the beautiful side of fashion, but knowing also the working side, because fashion is not only beauty, but it's also difficult job, difficult sector, because it changes very fast, unpredictable. Fashion changes a lot, and faster than any other sector. This sector responds to the market consideration, and this is the first sector where people start saving money, especially in crisis situations. Because of that, it's a kind of welcome activity, but on the other hand, it's very fragile. And in the situation in which we are all now, in the situation of the pandemic, when people started worry about their finances, and so also the lockdown, isolation in our flats, things started changing very fast. Fashion is the kind of sector which is heavily affected by the crisis. People continued buying food, drink water, pay for electricity, but what happened to buying clothes and other accessories which are not articles of the first need? I will start with a short presentation which I prepared for the forum, which very briefly describes the market. I saw our other speakers who are joining us from a distance online. So our format is as follows. For the participants and for the audience to understand, so it's a very short panel, 5–10 minutes for the speakers. So presentations lasting between 5 to 7 minutes. Now we have two heroines of our presentations. So all the speeches will last 5 to 10 minutes. We'll try to make use of our time limit. So I hope I will be able to show to you the presentation and describe to you the Russian fashion market. I represent the company Fashion Group, and for 20 years we have been involved in the applied consulting projects, work with major companies here, and also a course of lectures in the High School of Economics. Now we are enrolling a new intake for the second diploma. We already have 500 graduates working in this industry. Now we are having a new intake of students, and we share with the future specialists our consulting experience. Fashion consulting company monitors this education, and this is the way we work with major and smaller participants of the Russian fashion market. As I said, the pandemic means reloading for all of us. This is now everything is available online. Medicine, restaurants. We have learned to mark our birthdays and other holidays online, and we have two different types, as a physical body at home and as our minds in the web. And in the context of what has happened, the pandemic moved us away from the limits of our flats towards the computers and became a catalyst of the processes which were underway before that. We didn't see anything radically new, no breakthroughs, but what started before the pandemic and looked like a futuristic project to us became a reality. a symbol of the pandemic will be a mask, and it will remain, and probably will have to put up with it for some time to come. Although we are not very strict with it in Russia, but in Germany the attitude is quite different, in the United States as well. We know that there are different types of this virus, and every company which has its fashion DNA expressed it through this accessory, I mean masks, face masks. And we can now say that it's a symbolic image of the pandemic. And this symbol will remain in our history as a nail in the industry of fashion, because the mask became a quintessence of the fashion statement from brands. And we shall see what's going to happen to the face masks. We know that disposable face masks are more dangerous for the environment than fabric masks, although from the medical point of view the objective is the same. And I'm starting with the statement that this attitude to fashion, when designers offer something new and environmentally friendly, and here the face mask is a symbol of this attitude. Practically speaking, all Russian companies responded to this demand, even at the time when not everyone understood the scope of the crisis. But still, companies started to offer different initiatives to support fighting the pandemic. But first, the market did not respond very positively to this. And before 2009, the market was growing very fast. Then there were fluctuations. It stopped growing so fast. At present, the fashion market is absorbed everything, and the result started to the market started to shrink. It was oversaturated, and as you see, the money spent on fashion went down, and online sales went up. So the intensity of development of online market during the pandemic, it became acceptable not only for those people who have advanced tastes, but for everyone, for ordinary people. And here we can identify three trends which characterized the market before the pandemic. People who lost money after 2014, and the number of brands in the market, Asian, American, European brands. Here we had one of the most developed markets in the world. Another important factor is a wave of consumer patriotism as the result of the state policy, the result of sanctions, and the result of normal development of the civic society. All this resulted in people being open to the offers of the Russian fashion industry, and the brands started to develop quite successfully. And the third factor is the accelerated development of digitalization. Under the influence of the pandemic, here we also can talk about four important trends, and here I do not mean just beauty and style, and the fashion trends. Commercially speaking, commerce influenced fashion trends, not only face masks. Well, I will deviate for a minute and focus on the phenomenon on Dolce & Gabbana. Several days ago, they announced that their sales growth increased because they used all these trends very fast. They changed their collection. Instead of cruise collection, they had a kaftan and home gowns and pajamas. And instead of the cruise collection, they offered this type of collection, and people who were locked down in the yachts and their residential homes responded favorably. Then personalized letters from all the parties when people and their pictures were from the party. And for Dolce & Gabbana clients, the average age is 60 plus. And again, talking about the product, we know that in the past those were ready-made things which did not require any fitting. And another important factor is communication. That means a stylist addressed every individual clients individually. And as a result, their sales grew compared to the previous years. So those who could make use of these factors, they did, and they even increased their sales. So they created flexible management systems, changing the course very flexible and very fast, better for the small companies, then changing their collections, cutting down on the range of goods. And fourth is going to the line contacts. Nike recently gave up 70% of its distributors and shifted their sales online. And then changing the approach, giving up mediators like in the region. This is a kind of Protestantism. So when, yes, Protestants talk to the God directly without any intermediaries. The same is true here. Not just a brand communicating with people, but social networks has become a kind of meeting place for like-minded people. I would like now to give the floor to our experts and to our specialists. And the first person to whom I will give the floor, Igor Chapurin. He is the merited artist of Russia, designer, founder of Chapurin Russian Fashion House. He has huge experience. Igor knows all the stages of the development from wild capitalism till the present digitalized capitalism. And we would like to ask Igor to say about, to speak about his brand, because young people may fail to know. And now what happened to you during the pandemic? Good afternoon. I'm glad that I still managed to be in time here and to be in this wonderful company. That's true that our brand is rather unique, like any brand which has existed for decades. Our brand is 21 years old. So in these 21 years, we have managed to do a lot to live through many things, including crises. Because my first boutique was opened in 1998 at the time of an awful crisis when we did not quite understand how we shall live, and what way we would develop, what our objectives were. But we always advanced, and this desire to advance gave us a very important background. We make collections from couture, prêt-à-porter. We have many collaborations. I prepare many ballets. Now, a ballet in France at the moment and in Russia. This is also a beautiful story for the fashion industry. We created Mercedes. It's called Mercedes by Chapurin. In our line of products, we created irons, lots of other things in the industrial design. So we are rather diverse, curious, and I think comfortable. And what happened now is that in 21 years, there is another, regrettably, a crisis event. We have survived it, and I think we did this with honor. And we did not stop our activity during this time and fulfilled our contract obligations with our Western partners. We also helped the state, and I think we made many thousands of disposable outfit for doctors, and we are proud of the fact that we did not simply sit and moaned over the situation. We were next to the doctors, and I'm glad to say that we have been useful. So the story which has happened, I think this history will not leave unpleasant scars. I just remember when I was a young person in the 20th century, people used to say, what will people look like in the 21st century? And people believed it will be kind of nylon overalls and will look like Martians. Now we are in the 21st century. We like cashmere and we like fine silk. We like quality. So I would like to believe that what happened to humanity will teach us a good lesson, and it will influence the economy. What is important is always to make conclusions, not to pretend nothing has happened. And on the other hand, I wish to hope that we will continue loving, smiling, kissing, embracing each other, to remain human, alive human beings, hoping that we won't be afraid of emotions, which is a decoration of our life and pushes us towards victories, creation. You cannot just shrink, close up, and say that we'll always keep a distance. I would like to hope that doctors will learn to fight the disease and will start enjoying the fitting process, touch fabric, and enjoy the fact we can communicate in shops with each other. And I'm not in favor. Maybe that's rather sentimental. I'm not in favor of saying that everything will move online, and this is the process. To a certain extent, yes. But you cannot sell luxe clothes online. Very difficult. I know from the experience of Azel, when we talked to the people in Azel, and we understood that all dresses with corsets are difficult to sell, because people don't understand how it's supposed to look on his body. And many dresses were returned. Therefore, I hope that every brand will find its place, its niche. In the present situation, I will now describe what we have done, and I hope that this space of beautiful collections, because online we cannot understand the taste of the fabric, its air, its emotions. You have to see the fabric. Therefore, I hope that we shall still keep these emotions. So, and despite the fact we are the brand which offers couture clothes, yes, we prepared clothes for Madonna, Cher, and many other well-known people. We are proud of this, but we move forward. In the past 3 to 4 years, we have been very active in cooperation, in collaboration, and that helps us a lot, because we catch a new generation, we catch the emotion of new generations. One of the cooperation spheres is very important. 2 years ago, we signed a contract with Paramount Company and created a collection devoted to Bumblebee, that yellow car which saves young girls. And we prepared this collaboration, then extended the license and for another half a year. So it took us 2 years to work with this Bumblebee. And in London, we received an award for the first collaboration of the year from the point of view of a Paramount Company. So this is the product which is being developed online and has some offline life as well. But still, I would like to believe. Well, I'm thinking together with you, therefore, maybe I do not finish my sentences sometimes. So, what has happened to our industry? Some time ago, I visited Paris and selected fabric for the summer collection of the year 2021. I returned to Moscow, some samples returned, and I decided to select the collection. And then this trouble happened, and I really describe it as trouble, as grief. We could not order any fabric, so my work was all in vain. A great amount of work. Millions of people who create this fabric could not sell their fabric, and we were unable to create our collection using their fabric. That was a catastrophe. I thought that was the end of the catastrophe. No. Several days ago, we received the advice that the exhibition, which we visited every year, attended, participated every year, will not take place. Therefore, I do not know what to expect, what next life will bring us. I don't know how we can find a way out of the situation. Unfortunately, in our country, you cannot get what you want. This is a rather negative story, but I think we cannot ignore such situations.
This new collection for the winter and autumn of 2021 was impossible to launch because of the failure of supplies. And I did say, after all, ours is a huge country, maybe we can find a replacement of some of our orders here. So almost half of our orders have failed because we were unable to identify the more complicated fabrics here in Moscow. So the industry was very hard hit. When I place orders for fabrics, I touch almost every centimeter of the material of the cloth, and I cannot possibly order a fabric without touching the cloth. You need to touch to enjoy the look of the material. Igor, I have a question to you. Have you in any way felt the effect of the delayed demand? Okay, 2 days ago, a friend of mine, a lady friend of mine who wanted to marry for a third time had to cancel her wedding ceremony because the disease is still there, and it is still in the same format. I'm somewhat afraid it's not so much to do with the wedding ceremonies, but the collection that I was unable to demonstrate because that was scheduled a few days before the introduction of the lockdown. That was a luxurious kind of collection. We introduced a male line into our collection. It's a product of many people's effort, but it must be alive. When it just hangs on the clothes pegs, it's not alive. I did decide to demonstrate the collection while observing all the restrictions, but that's a symbolic gesture to say that everything will be back to normal. I would like people to believe in a brighter future, but people are cautious, and everything seems to have come down, to have fallen through. As to the economic side of it, I can only mention the mass market or something which is inexpensive and feels fine in the online environment. But everything which is personalized has been particularly negatively effective. People are cautious. Some of them are still at home in a self-imposed lockdown. They do not visit our boutiques, and they seem to be stuck in their homes. Our brand has suffered as a result of the pandemic to the maximum possible degree. But I say that when you are a dreamer, when you are optimistic about the future, then you find ways out. But unfortunately, it has hit us all. Yes, indeed, it has. And we are still likely to be affected. So we'll have to look at combination of different modes of business operation. Maybe there will be new solutions because we cannot get back to business as usual as before. But on the other hand, we cannot constantly live with fear. People tend to adapt to new conditions. It is a difficult question how to resolve this problem of the right fabric and the right cloth that is needed to design fashionable clothes. Maybe we can have answers from our experts. Alexandra Kaloshina, who's a unique person in her own way. She's fragile, shall I say, woman, and she has been nominated as the visionary trend of the season, and the 3D printing factory, which is engaged in textile printing. And this is where the experimental techniques usually emerge as physical objects. So what can you tell us? How can you help the designers? I will say things in parallel with the visual presentation. I wonder if you can actually follow my presentation. I want some feedback from the technicians. Yes, we can see you, Sasha. Yes, here is the presentation. It's on the screen. Excellent. We are a three-part company. One is the factory of 3D printing on materials, and it was started almost 2 years ago. And what is 3D printing on fabrics? It's the most advanced kind of technology, practically with unlimited possibility. Ours was 13th installment in the world. It's not so much to do with the colors and patterns, but it's highly environmentally friendly. It's green. As we were building our factory, we could see that we are within the global trend. So we were able to perform orders from 30 meters meters of printing to hundreds of meters. We can do both these kind of orders. So the factory operation has shown that the kind of change in the market, the many changes have become fractured into smaller mini orders and sub-orders. We accept the kind of orders when customers bring their own cloth and it's custom-made kind of printing. So we have built this kind of system now. During and hopefully after the pandemic, we have another launch of orders because people are retuning their collections, and we are right here ready to meet the demand. We could have never imagined that would be the situation. We'd been planning for big orders, but today what we see is an average order from some 30 to 300 meters length for the material. What we do is when we order and buy new fabrics, we start our own brand and test and adjust our materials by improving all the weak points. We have our own outlets and almost 60 such outlets, both in Russia and abroad. And the internet shop, so to say, was a great help. We were able to develop a community of customers. Those were not just 13,000 subscribers or 20,000 of them, but a group of brand-focused community. People know each other, they communicate with each other, ask each other questions about the purchases, and some even wrote to us that for the moment I do not need this kind of scarf, but all I want is just support the Russian designer, and that was a great help indeed to our brand. We are the most important idea is to stay within the framework of your own product and do the kind of business you can do best. A silk scarf may not the most demanded accessory today, so we think how to make a hood of this silk scarf, and we are adding accessories, and we add new details that find response with our community. We build our business on emotion on the one hand, and on usefulness, utility on the other hand, because a silk scarf may be used as a mask, or a hood could be could match or coordinate coordinate with almost any kind of clothing. Our studio of industrial design that we started a few years ago is the only participant of the premiere Vision, which was mentioned by Igor before me. And the work of the studio almost always is mentioned in all writings about textile design. What is it? It's kind of analysis and forecast. We should always be ahead of the textile or fabric itself. And here in the slides you can see some ideas for the autumn and winter of 2022. We have already developed a 2022 summer connection. We want to penetrate into people's heads and souls to see what they want. Here in front of you is one of the trends of our winter textile collection. And this is how we may change our classical vision of a flower. This kind of drawing or print will stay with us. I would like I'd like to take back to some previous time, or maybe 30, 40 years ago. In the historical perspective, we should maybe take a look or look back now historical values and traditional design, localized kind of ideas. We modify them, and what you have seen, it's a kind of a brief seasonal trend, and we still try to look back at our historical values. And our design bureau studio now has this challenge of looking into the future and think of new textile technologies, what they could be manufactured from, food waste, including some orange peel. As to Koreans, they've run out of food waste because they've used them all in the manufacture of textiles. So we must adapt to this new reality. As to the digital technologies which are related to the textile manufacture, temperature regulation or temperature control, the kind of fabrics that can even change their patterns, the patterns, and this is what we are trying to do by adapting to this fast-changing reality. Thank you, Alexandra. Thank you very much indeed. Now you have heard two persons. Those are the people of whom our fashion industry can really be proud of. This is the person, Igor, I'm saying, has never compromised on the quality and the style of his quality, nor is Alexandra. And I believe that thanks to the persons like you, we can look ahead. Now, let me say this. Inside the pandemic situation, we saw an element of futurism, namely 2 years from now, we can perhaps be looking at the initial history or something to do with stability and the basic values. It's the so-called slow fashion, when we seem to be giving up some of the things or pieces of clothing when we can hand down to our children and grandchildren. And I would like to invite the Olga Leffers, founder of VintageDream Gallery. So perhaps you will say a few words about what you are doing. The story of VintageDream brand dates back 10 years ago, and I never had an advisor or a consultant, and nobody helped me to develop a business plan. Then in those years, the only thing that prompted me to attempt collecting and selling vintage clothing, it's the love of this area and this activity. So 10 years ago, the brand first emerged, and over these years, we have gone through a number of crises, so perhaps I could speak from experience. If you are confident of what you are doing, if you are dedicated to your work and you are an expert, you should be up to date on the one hand.
And do not make waves for no reason. Just continue to work very hard. Be consistent in your work. Be enthusiastic. And 10 years ago, 20 years ago, when I started my collections, and everybody implied that I was crazy, why should this young girl buy old things, not new ones? I ignored these comments. And 10 years ago, when I started my brand, and most people did not understand what I was doing, so what I did, I ignored them. I sat on the bank of the river, not waiting for the dead body of my adversaries, but waiting for the time when the state will, when the society will understand what I was doing. But I was not sitting on my hands. At that time, it was already obvious to me that for any project, it was important to have a community of people. So from the very first days, retail emerged at the same time, as well as a club of collectors, especially in my sector, in my niche, where every decoration, every piece of clothes has a story. And without a story, you can sell such pieces only to your colleague. So for ordinary consumers, it's impossible to sell such pieces without explaining their history. Therefore, we continued working, raising the awareness of our clients, promoting vintage clothes, and showing what the society reached much later, and this is fashion. We were all in favor of reason, not buying a lot, but buying intentionally. And we're very glad that now this became a common trend. And the world statistics confirm the fact that the segment of resale is growing faster than the segment of luxe goods. Now, close to 2 years now, we have been conducting regular events, public talking, and organize other events devoted to promoting reasonable consumption. When I arranged the first show like this and invited the first speaker, I was surprised by the fact that many people knew some facts. This is a phenomenon like a professional disease when you yourself understand some subject very well and you believe that others know it very well as well. In fact, it is not so. So for some people it was an eye-opener to understand how environmentally hostile is the production of fabric and some other decorations, how much electricity is consumed, and other harm to environment, conditions and workers involved in this process. So I think that the first step is providing information. People should start getting information and start thinking about it, and then they start acting. And I'm glad to say that after our events, many people started dealing with some challenges, and they decided to follow the rules. Like, for example, if you buy a new piece of clothes, you must do something with an old piece of clothes, not throw away, but find some use for it. Or if you can't do that, don't use new clothes. Or before a purchase, think well, analyze whether you really need this thing. So what we're doing now is a collection vintage. We have chosen this segment on purpose. I have many colleagues who are involved in various types of vintage because there is a huge difference between second-hand and collection vintage. I won't give you a lecture on the subject because I have very little time for my address. And in conclusion, I would briefly describe to you how we survived these months of quarantine and what's happening to us now. First of all, I believe that every brand must create a safety belt. Happily, I have always understood this. Therefore, the money should be spread logically. The money for investment, for the safety belt. I had the safety belt. Therefore, thanks to it, I did not fire any employees. We did not close any of our projects. We did not reduce any of our projects because we have collaborations. We participate in charity events. So every situation can be looked upon in different ways. Thanks to this crisis, we moved from a worse place to a better place. Bronne 4 is a good address, and this happened thanks to the crisis because many offices became vacant, and what was not accessible for us in the past became accessible during and after the crisis. Then the state offered some support, and thanks to very correct consulting, we received it, because it also takes some knowledge, what documents to submit, how to submit them, and that was an incentive for us. So we were online anyway, and offline as well. But it pushed us to be more active. We also have a mobile application which will be functioning very soon. So I myself said I'm using applications. Why do you think other people will not use application? Now speed is very important nowadays. It is more convenient to use these applications. So we did not waste time. We used time rationally for our favorite customs, for our community lovers of vintage. We offered them lectures lectures on the subject, and 99% of these lectures were free of charge, so we tried somehow to amuse, to entertain our clients, not to become maybe too upset by the crisis. Well, we have very many questions. This is a very interesting subject, and this is one of the promising ones, especially from the point of view of collection, of vintage collection, because this is the sphere when clothes are selected by experts and the price grows. So besides fashion, there is another important component here. Well, that's true. A couple of days ago, I read a lecture for Mercedes where I talked about investment into fashion. I think that for many centuries, even for millennia, people did not understand the money which was used for fashion as investment. People thought it was a waste of money. And, well, in fact, pieces of clothes can be attractive from the point of view of investment. Only you have to select them with knowledge and reason. Yes, this is an educational trend. And in this context, I would like to give the floor to our next speaker, who can focus on the subject and present his view or her view, because it's a chance not to buy clothes, not to increase your wardrobe, but to rent clothes. Well, I know we don't have much time. We have 2 more speakers. That's very interesting. But can you please speak on the idea of your brand, the prospects? So you talk about evening clothes, difficult for the pandemic, your vision of the future. Could you please switch on the presentation?
Меня зовут Елена Казак, я владелец бюро аренды VECHER.
So I'm involved in the renting business for evening events, for party events. I have 10 years of working in the bank system, banking consultations, and during this time I myself knew the problem of preparing for some party events. Not only myself, but colleagues as well. When you spend lots of money, lots of time to choose something nice for the to go out. You spend a lot of money, and what is said that you can not put it on once again.
The rental services did exist in those days, but they were addressing a different type of target audience. So the idea was to start a new rental business that would be digital and would be focused on the more relevant kinds of clothes, and it will be open very soon in the autumn. So what is our particular key features? We are environmentally friendly because we realize how much time and human effort is spent to produce an evening gown, and we want to make the girls aware that it must be trendy and fashionable to rent evening clothes, and we are in contact with a target audience that would help us promote this kind of approach and our particular trend. Among our product line, we have clothes manufactured by international designers, but we are particularly focused on the Russian designers, and some of them are more focused on the day-to-day fashion, and our services could be launching pad for their business. Ours is a highly modern website, and that would enable our customers to follow the whole cycle of the renting process without actually visiting our office. We intend to collaborate with top stylists, and the women and girls interested in our service will always be able to use the services of our collaborating stylists. And I'd really like to say thanks to the pandemic, because during the lockdown it highlighted some of the hidden meanings and values that are part of our wardrobe, and many of us were able to sort out things, and we understand that this kind of clothes purchasing somehow spoiled us. I'm not only talking of the population, people who lost some of their income, but even those who have not realized they were not prepared to spend so much money on going out or evening kind of dresses and outfits. Those who are mostly used to T-shirts and sweatshirts now want to feel more regal, so to say, but they do not want to spend money on evening outfits. So why not come to our rental shop and rent a gown from us? We seem to be within the world trend. If in Europe somehow the steps are very cautious, in the US it's highly popular, not only in terms of evening clothing, but in day-to-day clothes as well. Even the big retailers start small corners or corner shops that could offer rentals to customers, because that is done very quietly and in a very safe way, so that people should be aware of what the advantages and benefits of our service are. But let me finish with the words of May Mask, who is not the mother of a genius, but herself is a very stylish and smart lady. She says you should wear things again and again and stay reasonable, remain reasonable. We have 2 minutes, 2 persons as speakers, and we must manage our discussion within the remaining 10 minutes. And we would like to invite Tatiana Simonova, who is with us, founder of Silk Me brand. She is also a blogger, and she will say the words on how to survive in the pandemic. Tatiana, we cannot see you for the moment, but we can now see you. Thank you for the invitation to join news, but somewhat as an opponent to what was said, or as distinct from what it was said. It's not about fashion. I'm all about money. I began as a builder, and the key question was what kind of income my business will generate, because I need to pay salaries to my employees. So what kind of product we can create, then develop a business, and to be confident and happy with what you are doing. So we proceed from the analytical data and the fashion trends. One could say a lot about building complicated designs and patterns, but only 20% of people can really afford this kind of clothing. But as to the remaining 80%, they want some kind of clothing and have to pay for the accessories and footwear, and small brands can find their niche there. I was not part of the general crowd, and many people seem to be breaking away from their comfort zone, and they change their outlook. I thought of how could I use the internet opportunities to sell my products, because we couldn't see how we could do that, and we then switched on to natural silk line.
Well, in fact, these are quite laconic clothes, the kind of dresses and skirts, and it became a well-known brand in Russia, because for them this product is a harmonic part of their collection with the prints. So for very, very bright trousers, you need a top like this. And 2017, we used Marketplace, and we're still present there. And thanks to it, we could develop, would continue our development, because during the first months, I wouldn't use any figures, just speak generally. So with Wildberries, with the first months of sale, we increased our sales, and we did not have any stores in Tverskaya Street, but we received more money than during a year, and then we start looking in a different way at the partner. We understand that you can work with this partner and work with the marketplace, not because I want to send everything to this marketplace, but it's important to take into attention various categories. And if you don't know this, look for your own niche. finish. If there is no conception of top without shoulders, then don't try to offer this to them. So working with marketplace made it possible for us to open up another brand in another segment of the market, base clothes for women, and in the last 10 years it grew by 10 times before the pandemic. We could not catch up with the demand. And we produced the kind of clothes which every woman needs, even if your income is very high. Still, when you go on a business trip, you need dresses which look well, which do not have any wrinkles. And there are many women who need such clothes. The time of pandemic was complicated, and in April I had to stop all the factories, and these were very complicated messages when I announced that our colleagues saw that we suspended our sales. I did not lose any of the employees. We did not receive any tax breaks. We did not ask for a deferred payment, because this is more difficult when it is a deferred tax payment. Therefore, we paid everything in time. So I will repeat this. So we preserved all our facilities. At present, we have 3 more, because in July we started working fully. Thanks to the marketplaces, our income dropped, but not very significantly. Then we did not have any losses. And this is a bonus product with very good quality, with the closed seams. And our clients still had money. They were not really affected by crisis. As to other types of brands, we still have some projects in the pipeline, but at the time of the crisis, our sales dropped 30%, mainly to the fact that we ourselves reduced our output. We decided that we will sell only what we were sure of. We did not produce polo, T-shirts, suits, because those were experiments and we were not certain of the sales. What are we now preparing? The marketplace is now at a low level. It should be developed, because the Russian market waited for a long time this moment. Young people understand it better, because for a long time fashion concentrated around a certain community level, as a professional communicating level or other communicating. Remember what happened to Instagram, the number of bloggers, ordinary people, mothers and children, who became bloggers and could join the line of clothes production. So these people joined this sphere, started their sales without any checks. Some of the accounts were fake accounts. There were many negative developments. So these were quite different people, not from the professional community, which was developed for 30 years, just next-door neighbors. So instead of Instagram, they moved to the marketplace. So marketplace is better financially protected, payments are faster, and you can try the clothes. You don't have to spend much efforts on this. This is a very successful cooperation. I apologize, but the organizers are asking us. So I understand that Tatiana used her example to show very clearly that people from outside the fashion sphere, but who understood the trends and analyzed in her own product, which can sell very well online, which are easy to buy and presented very well. So fashion was, in fact, well, Salieri. Now I would like to give the floor to Masha Titova, who is somewhere here in the first row. And she will briefly tell us about her brand of basic clothes. She also found some formula similar to Tatiana's and similar in analytic mindset, and also created a product which is in demand.
Yes, thank you. I apologize for being presented as a clothes designer. I'm more of a fashion industry historian. My brand is called Cocos Moscow. We've been in the market for 5 years. Before pandemic, we had 7 retail points. Now we have 5, and there's an online shop, our proprietary shop. We also cooperate with marketplaces, but as contrary to your positive experience, we are not very happy with them. And logistically speaking, even though we used the services of the larger and more responsible companies, somehow blocked our online sales development. We create our base collection, just 2 of us. 2 of us, please. We have production facilities in Russia as well as in China and Vietnam. And during this crisis situation, our connections became more complicated. Some of our collection is stuck somewhere in the middle of this awful situation. So I cannot tell you sincerely that we have been able to sell it all. In mass marketplace, now you can see lots and lots of poor quality goods that used to be stored somewhere and now are part of sales online. We do see some advantages, and we tend to be positive as to our future prospects. I may be sounding quite familiar, but people do need something to wear to a social function, but such consideration as comfort have become even more relative. We are back to that story, and we have adapted tailor our collection to the current trends, and now we are back to the basics. This is what we can manufacture in a more environmentally friendly way. We are just getting rid, so to say, of our production in the Asian countries, and we are relocating our production in Russia. And yes, everywhere in the industry must have suffered. Yes, there are brands that feel fine, but 80 to 90% have felt the negative impact. Shop closures, poor sales levels, and any crisis will end with the emergence of new ideas, new trends, which are even more relevant in global terms, not for people who do not buy on impulse, but buy reasonably and sensibly. So for those intelligent, smart, forward-looking people, it is important. So I wish everyone every success, and thank you for the topic we discussed together. Masha, thank you very much. We are coming to the end. In short, fashion is like music. There is classical music which should and could be heard alive, so everyone to be with Masuev live. And so we have rap and pop music, and the same applies to fashion. There will always be different tastes and shades and nuances. So we have seen a great deal of various approaches. Everyone seems to have a competence of their own, and that enables us to respond to the new market conditions. Thank you very much.